So it seems that my favorite player in the NBA, George Hill, is in trade considerations right now with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Or maybe by the time you're watching this, he has since been traded to the Cavaliers. Who knows? I think this makes sense for the Sacramento Kings as well as the Cleveland Cavaliers. Hill has not been that good of a fit in Sacramento. Maybe that's because the roster around him is just too young to where a guy like Hill, who, more of a low usage dude, wasn't really going to make a big difference for them, as he seems like a guy who can make a good team better, but he might not make a bad team that much better. Or maybe because Dave Yeager isn't giving him the ball enough, whatever. The fact is that Hill is a really good defender, he's a really good three-point shooter, he's totally fine with playing an off-ball role, and he doesn't turn the ball over that much. His turnover percentage is actually the highest it's ever been this season at 14%, but for his career he's averaging 11.5, which is very good. I mean, if you just look at how Hill fits in with the Cavaliers, or actually, before I do that, let's just say what the trade would be. To make the money work, probably just Shumpert and Channing Frye. Now, whether you would have to give up your own first-round pick or not would be, I guess, the big question. Would Sacramento be content with, 2 second-round picks for George Hill? Probably not, but... And actually, Cleveland's second-round picks for the next few seasons are so up in the air with protections that I don't even know if you can even trade any second-round picks until 2022 or something. But they do have their own first-round pick this season, which, I mean, if the Kings could get a first-round pick, even if it's going to be late in the first round because it's Cleveland, I mean, getting that for George Hill, I think that's a quality move for them. Now, what could be interesting is, would Sacramento take Cedi Osman as opposed to the late first-round pick? I mean, could they be worth basically the same thing? Yeah, maybe. He's a small forward who seems to have an all-around game, can make threes. I think he can become something of a ball handler, and I'm sure he could have more time in Sacramento than he would Cleveland, but then at the same time, you look at Sacramento's wings with Buddy Hield and Bogdanovich and Garrett Temple, who, I mean, he's a veteran, so he probably plays over him, and it could be tough to get Cedi some minutes in Sacktown, but potentially he could be worth it over a first-round pick. We'll have to see how the Kings feel about him. But if we just get now back to George Hill on this Cleveland Cavaliers team, I mean, it's a really good fit, because the thing with Hill is just how seamless it is to insert him into whatever you got going on. He can play in almost any lineup with them, so he could play with LeBron James pretty easily. LeBron does the LeBron things, and then Hill plays off ball. He could play with Isaiah Thomas the same way. He could play with Dwayne Wade the exact same way. And I think in a lineup with Dwayne Wade and George Hill, that would probably be the one lineup where it would be good to have Hill be more of a creator, just because, I mean, how old is Dwayne Wade right now? He's 36. I don't really want to trust 36-year-old Dwayne Wade to consistently run my offense. He's done a decent job of it this season, but if we're talking about the playoffs, when the defense can really focus in on him, then it could be tough for him. But if you get George Hill in there, then I think that could be enough. Even if neither one of them is a big-time facilitator, the combination of them two could be enough to for you to be okay. And then you could have him play with Korver or J.R. Smith or whoever to get more shooting out there. The other thing this would do is just help out Cleveland a lot on defense, which they desperately need. George Hill could defend the one guy you don't want Isaiah Thomas defending, whoever that may be, game to game. Gives Dwayne Wade some rest as well, because there's a lot of guys that I don't want Dwayne Wade defending, even if he may be a little better than George Hill is on defense. And then if you think about this in the long term, because whether Cleveland makes this move or not, I think they're still going to the NBA Finals and they're probably going to face the Warriors. Hill definitely gives you someone who can be something against Golden State because of his defense. And I think then the big key would be the potential of Jay Crowder bouncing back to what he once was on defense, which that's a big if, because he hasn't been good this season. But if Crowder could just get in shape and whatever the hell else in time for the postseason, and specifically the NBA Finals, so I'm giving the guy a lot of leeway and a lot of time to figure things out here, then you could have those two in the game, Hill and Jay Crowder. I mean, defensively, that'd be good against the Warriors. Do I think that gives the Cavaliers a real chance? No, but still good nonetheless. I mean, what if you had a lineup of George Hill, LeBron James, Jay Crowder, I guess Kevin Love, and then, I don't know, if you wanted Kevin Love to be the lone big man, then maybe you could go with D. Wade or Kyle Korver or J.R. Smith as the other guy. Maybe you want to go Thompson and Kevin Love. Who knows? It definitely gives you some stuff to work with, just because Hill can play both point guard and shooting guard. So, I mean, yeah, I think this is potentially a good move, or if it already has happened by the time you see this, then yeah, it's a good move, assuming that the Cavaliers didn't trade any staple pieces of their team, you know? The biggest thing is the versatility, I would say. Because then you would say, alright, how many defenders do the Cavs have? Potentially 3, with George Hill, Jay Crowder, Tristan Thompson. But of course, Crowder and Thompson haven't been too good this season. And then in terms of good offensive players, there's a million. So, the ability to kind of pick and choose who to put where, depending on the team you're facing, specifically in the playoffs, could be good. So, I mean, if we look at down the road, right? So as of right now, the Cavaliers are the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. And in round 1, at this very moment, they'd be playing the Indiana Pacers. Victor Oladipo's pretty good. And should the Cavaliers have much problems? No. But having a guy like George Hill to defend Oladipo, it's a luxury to have, no doubt. If we get to round 2, George Hill defending Kyle Lowry, well, if you remember the playoff series against Indiana, when George Hill was still on there, when Paul George went nuts and almost, he was the best player in the series, and he almost won that series by himself, essentially, on offense. What was super underrated about that series was the lockdown defense that George Hill was playing on Kyle Lowry. He was swallowing him up. Now, that was a couple of years ago, and he's a little older now, but still, that's the type of stuff that George Hill can do. And then if you get to the Eastern Conference Finals, if the Celtics were to get there, as the way the seedings are set up now, that's the only way the Cavaliers would play the Celtics, is if the Celtics got to the East Finals with them, is, Kyrie. So, George Hill's good, gives them versatility, and I don't think they have to give up too much to get him. So, there you go, George Hill.